What is up, you guys? So, welcome to another edition of Sound Design Wednesdays. So, today I'm going to do things a little differently. So, since I didn't really have any since I really felt too passionate about, I was going to do something on Razor or Monarch or some FM synthesis, but I decided to just kind of take on a category or a genre of music. So, what I'm going to plan on doing is for the next half an hour, I'm just going to make a new track house or like a tech house type of track. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. So I'm probably just gonna make a copy of this one, start all over, or you know what, let's just start a new session. So for today's episode, we're just gonna make a new type of tech house type of thing, or we'll see what happens. So let's just save this and start over. So in this video, you'll kind of get to see kind of the things I like to set up before I start writing, and the kind of the first things I like to start doing. And if you guys like this, I might start like a tech house series, so making a song like that from scratch and all the way till the point where it's done. So if you want something like that, let me know. So let's just grab this stuff. Okay, so we're in a new session. I like to delete my first return. I like to bring this stuff up, so press on tab to switch between these windows kind of quickly. I like that. So first things first, I'm going to set up my master bus. Now the reason why I do this is because I like to write into a mastering chain so I can get an idea of what all the compression and all those kind of things will do to the dynamics of the track. It's kind of a good way to preview something before you mix it down. Of course, you're not going to export this song with anything on your mastering chain. You're going to take that off and then export the way it should be with nothing on the mastering chain. But I like to write into one to kind of preview that stuff. So I do have one I like to use, so I made an Ableton rack of it. I can quickly talk about what all this stuff is. So you can see it's a L3, so it's a limiter right here at the end, and I set the output to -0.3, threshold around -9 around there, but I'm going to drag this up so that it's at 0. And important thing is turn off dither. If you do export, to make a ghetto copy for yourself just to listen to in your car and kind of, have something nice to listen to in the meanwhile before you get professional mastering or do it better yourself, turn off the dither, because you don't want to have dither in your anywhere near your track until it's the very end. Dither is like the last thing that happens to a song. So that's in a mastering stage. Then I have this little S1 imager, just kind of adding a little bit more width to the overall center, a little bit of mid-side processing, so just throwing all the lows and highs to all the lows to the center, all the high stuff to the sides, bringing down the lows a little bit, bringing up the sides a bit. So the thing I realized about when you listen to a song in mono, because I have this thing here, this software that runs with my interface, and I can preview stuff in mono. What I found out is that the mono, I usually have my drums super tight, and when I throw it in mono, it's already going to clip because it's so loud. Even though it's not clipping in my meters, and again, this is like when the mastering chain off, I find that when I throw it in mono, it will start to clip, so I kind of throw down the middle part of the stereo field. I bring that down a little bit just so I give some more room for the high stuff to kind of fill in the center a bit. So that's kind of what I use this for, just to kind of bring down the low stuff down a little bit. This is like around -2 dB, so it's kind of low. Then I have this just this typical setting from Native Instruments solid bus compressor. So this is backing vocals. I like the settings on this. Slow attack, kind of quick release, 4 for ratio, thresholds around 11 dB. So, just really, crunches things together in a nice way. Then there's this Brainworks plugin, which is the BX Solo. This is free. Another mid-side plugin, so I use this to throw another bit of width. So this is 150%, so I'm just throwing width to the overall. And then we just have some other compressors. So this is kind of my mastering chain to listen through. So again, this is not what I use for mastering. This is just what I use to throw shit up on SoundCloud really quick. Everything that's on my SoundCloud is, just being ran through something like this. None of that stuff is, ran through like a professional mastering thing. So anyway, don't want to take too much time talking about that. Next thing I like to do before I start writing is set up my pre-master. So my pre-master would be something like a compressor, some saturation, and a multiband compressor to split up the frequency. So the low, the mid, high, they're split up in this multiband compressor. I have a video on that, so I'll probably link that below if you want to figure out what this is. But I'm going to turn off this compressor. I don't want that. Hide this chain. Let's turn off the saturation and the auto filters. Make sure that the low stuff is in the middle. So the point of this is to split up the frequency ranges by low, mid, high, and the low stuff is going to be 0% width with the utility, so that way it's mono. The mid will be kind of default, and I can also bring up the volume here if I want, or here. And then I have a high, and that's panned out a little bit further, so that's 150%. Then I compensate with around 3 dB or 2 dB of gain, just because when you make something wider, it loses some inherent volume. So let's see, I'm going to probably, because it's kind of tech house type stuff, I'm going to probably want maybe everything beneath 150 to be in the mono. So, you know, now I've set that here, so now I got to go to the mid and change that parameter in here too. So that way, now everything that's above 150 hertz is now considered to be in the mid. So the way that this works, this pre-master works, is everything has to be routed to that. So I have to take all these new audio tracks, route them to send A, and then go to audio 2, and instead of master, sends only. So now everything goes through that. So if I mute this, we don't hear anything at all, because before anything goes to the master, it goes through this, hence pre-master. So now I'm ready. So I'll start. That's the stuff I like to do at the beginning. Other than that, actually, there's one more thing. I like to set up a marker right at the top, and I'm going to call this G minor, because I like to, instead of putting, you know, top of song or intro, I like to put G minor. So even if I open this project up months later, I know what key it is right away just from looking at the top. So that's kind of something I like to do. Now let's go get a kick. So we'll go to my samples. So lucky for me, I have a few tech house kicks I can use in the key of G. So I'll use this one, and we'll zoom in on this a bit more. And if you guys don't like my Ableton skin, if it's too dark in the videos, let me know and I'll change that back to the default. So, you know, inside of preferences that you can change look and feel. So mine's on disco. If you guys want it back on default, if that's easier, let me know. But for now, I like disco just because it looks different. So I like that. So let me zoom in on this. So let me make a little 4-bar loop. And let's kind of listen to this as well. So I'll make a selection, Command L, and listen. And of course, I'm going to turn this down to around -10. So the reason why I like to start with kicks, I don't always do it, but I like to get my drum section really solid and gain structure the rest of the song around that. So gain structure is I'm setting the kick to be the loudest thing in the track, and everything else will be mixed to that volume or lower, or if it's vocals, a little bit louder than the kicks. But I'm structuring the whole levels of the song based around the kicks. So that's called gain structure, and you should look that up, read up on that. It's super important, and it helps you mix things easily. So I have that around -10. I'm gonna go to these, put it around that same range, maybe 3 or 5 dB lower than that. And let's turn off the master real quick. So I can see that this kick is kind of around -8, -9 dB. So that's a fair volume for a kick, but I do want it to sit at -10. So I'll go lower. That's close enough. So now if I turn this on, I'm not I have plenty of headroom for this stuff to work. If you have the threshold down on the limiter, you have some room to work with that. But for now, I'm going to leave it at 0 for YouTube reasons. Even here, I'm still got plenty of headroom. And so anyway, let's, okay. So I do want to bring in another kick. So instead of bringing in another one of my samples, I'll show you kind of how I make one. So I'll go into plugins, I'll grab either bassism or kick, which is another kick synthesizer, so I have it in here somewhere. I think I'll stick with kick. So, oops, I need to bring in a audio track, instrument track, not a audio track, as I was trying to do up here. So I'll go here. I will now make sure that this is routed to the pre-master, so sends only. And let's see, so I'm going to insert a little bit of MIDI here. So Shift Command M, I will grab the note of G2, and let's make the grid smaller. And so that's about right. And I just wanted to snap there. Cool, so now we have a good range here. Now, another thing I like to do is I like to go grab another plugin that's in my audio units. And I like to grab the span from this company right here. So this is a free plugin. You can get this on pluginboutique.com. This is an analyzer. I like this one. So what I like to do is go presets, low frequency inspection, and when I play this, I can hold the note and see what key it's in. So I can see that this is telling me that it's in the key of G, and I can see that right here. So, let's see, or up here. Sometimes it switches between being up here and down here. So that's in G1, so that's at 47 Hertz. So a direct octave above that would be like less than 100, maybe around 98, something like that. So now I kind of have some ideas where to put some bassline stuff. So now up here, I can go up here, G minor, and kick at, what the heck was it, 44.7 was it? I don't know. I like to do that so I can, bust out a calculator and calculate some octaves of, G. So that was at, let's see, the peak of this is kind of now. Alright, so right there. So that's at 47, so okay. I'll now rename this to be at 47 Hertz. And again, that's going to remind me what the kick is saying at. So I usually put in the Hertz amount, or the frequency of the kick right here. So this one I'm going to ignore. This one it's going to be my main kick. Let's make a loop, and now let's get to making this kick. So now I can kind of see what I'm doing with this, and there's another plugin I like to use as well. Let's see, I know it's starting out slow, but usually setting up the session is what takes a while, and then once you have everything set up, you can just fly. So I'm going to now just use this to kind of see what the kicks look like as well. So this is a super handy dandy free plugin as well, and a lot of people will like to use this to kind of see what's going on. I do too. So I'm gonna now key track this, or not, since I had it at G anyway. Actually, I have to see this by itself. Alright, so it's around G, luckily, so I don't even have to key track it to that. Since this is kind of a tech house type thing, I might want to add some length to this. And I might want to add in a second point. Let's mute that, the click. Kind of reminds me of like Dubfire type of minimalistic type kicks, or at least how the bass goes in those type of tracks where it feels like it's pulsing up. It's kind of like these kind of curves. That is so like Dubfire sounding, like right there. So god, I hate the distortion in this, so I'm going to turn that stuff down. Drive is alright, but I'm going to turn off the EQs as well. Alright, so sounding a bit too dark, so we're gonna add in a second point somewhere, probably around here. I think it might have sounded better before, but okay. Let's try to fix a little bit of that then. So again, kicks is kind of what I take a long time to do. It's kind of what I like to focus on. Because if you mess up and don't do your drum section right, then going back and redoing that after the track is done in terms of melodies and all that stuff, it's a pain in the butt to make a drum section sound really good when you already have other layers that are kind of based and dependent around that in terms of gain and frequency and all that. So I like to focus and do that first. Get the frequencies right for that so I can use that to form other things like bass lines and leveling right so I can gain structure properly. So I think it's important to start like that, that setting yourself up for success. But sometimes I've written melodies and just then put the whole track together. It was a little bit sloppy at first, but once it came together at the end, it was it was like it didn't matter. So there's no rules, but I think there are some ways to be efficient. So let's see what this is sitting at. I know I've spent a long time just setting this up and getting the kick where I want it to be. So it's a little high, it's around the A, and I'm going to check that with Spectrum as well because I like to have two analyzers. Not that I don't trust this analyzer, it's just that I also like to confirm that with the analyzer, the Spectrum. So I'm going to grab this Spectrum. Yeah, so it's around the A. So what I'm going to probably want to do is, if I need to go from A to G, I just need to tune it down a little bit. So I need to, drag this overall pitch down a little bit. And what I'll probably want to do is copy these two, or just copy a Spectrum, or I'll copy this, drag that down, paste it in here, open that so I can see both of these at the same time, and make sure that this is on low frequency inspection. Almost there. Just probably need to go down a few more frequencies. So it looks like negative 12 cents. So if I had this in audio form, I could just use that to detune it that much, and I'd be staying at G1. Almost there, so maybe even a little bit lower. So just gonna get that tuned in right. It's a little bit sharp, so maybe even a little bit lower. Perfect, so it's kind of staying nicely at a G. I can save this preset as a G Tech, I don't know, 3, I think it would be. And if I go to my user, where is it? In here, presets, factory user, I think it would be a G Tech 4 actually. So, so I can go back to this and rework it a little later. So, oh, well, we're not done there. We got to add that click back in. So I like click 22. That's the one that I like. And we're just going to solo it. Actually, you know what? I might want to go into one of the ones I've loaded in before. So in this kick synthesizer, you can also bring in your own things in here. So you click on load and you can load a sample into this to use that as your attack, or hence click. And if you don't like the way it plays in, you also have an envelope for that. cool. So that way, when it goes through the master, I mean the pre-master, the high frequencies in that kick will be kind of further out, panned out, and the low frequencies of that kick will be in the middle. So it's kind of a nice way to have a wide sounding kick that is definitely strong in the center and has some, width in the sides in terms of high frequency. So it's a nice way to have kicks. And so let's kind of save that. Last thing probably to do is just fix this envelope for the amp envelope. So the amp envelope controls all this stuff, and the click envelope controls this section right here. So so now I can just save it again. Do you want to override? Yes. I found a little bug inside the kick though. So when you save a preset and you used a user click, it always snaps back to the first one. So that's a little bug I found. So now I have to remind myself that I use the XF, the X for symbol thing. So I have to remind myself to use that one. So like I said, if I try to save this again, you'll see that the click snaps back to the first user sample. So that's very annoying. I don't like that. And so, sometimes in the preset, I'll write which click I have in there, if it's a user one. If it's any of the, ones that come factory installed, it won't do that. But that's a little bug I found. Maybe I should report it to them, and maybe they'll like that. But for now, it's a really good plugin. So now I'm going to route this audio 3, or actually I could just freeze it, so I might want to do that. So I'll just go ahead and freeze this and flatten, so that way I have this whole kick. And this is just the tail. Even sounds like a kick as well. I'm going to push it off to the side for now. So let me select a whole big chunk of this. Command I to insert the time, so now it just jumps back here. And so now I can just freely work on all this. And of course this needs to have some fade in there, so let me just go to none, click on this, command option F to bring in the fades, and I'm just going to fade out the end a little bit. And I'll consolidate it. I'll name it a G Tech, I don't know, 05, probably around there. So I'll just consolidate that, and now I'll use that kick. So the combination of the two kind of makes for a nice kick. They're both harmonic to each other, but one of them should be louder than the other. So I noticed that this is all the way up, so I need to turn off this master chain here. And see, I'm clipping now, and I didn't even know it because I had a limiter. So I do turn this off and on a lot to get levels done, especially in the beginning with the kicks. Once you have the kicks and all that, and you're just then mixing everything in the gain structuring lower than the kicks, usually when you turn off your mastering chain, you'll see that it's sitting at a nice like -7 to 6 dB, and you have some headroom left. And if you're around -10 dB, that's pretty good. So let's bring down this kick. So that's pretty loud, obviously, so we're going to keep bringing that down. And then we're going to turn this one on, bring it in. So I like the way those two are mixed together, so I should just bring them both down so that I'm sitting at like -10. Alright, that's good. So I have at least 4 dB of room for synths and things like that to come in, so that's good. And now if I kind of group these two together, group them together, make sure that this audio is going to sends only. Send that together and make sure that these, now I take away those sends since it's in a group, routed to group. So these only are now going to the group, and the group is going to send A, which is our pre-master. So now everything is solid. Okay, so I know I've spent like half an hour getting to this point. So I'm going to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes, and I think I'm just going to do a tech house type of series, so from beginning to end. So this is going to be the quicker part of the tutorial now that we have some kicks. So let's bring in some loops to kind of break up to loosen the groove a bit. So I do have some house loops I made that will be out next month in a big pack of 500 samples. So I'm just going to use the loop. Loops are definitely okay to use if you made them on your own. If you don't know how to make loops, learn how to make them. They're fun to make. And I know that these are in the key of G, so that's also why I'm going to them, because I know my library. So I wonder why there's automation here. So mixer, track volume, I guess there's a point somewhere. So what I should do is select track content and then delete envelope. So let me see. Oh, or I could just get rid of that point. Delete envelope. Okay, cool. And let's turn this back on. And by the way, all your meters, what they tell you you're peaking at up here is still true. So, you know, this is before the master. So, you know, you can use these levels to kind of get some, to figure out what your mix would sit at anyway. So I can usually tell what my dB would be on the master just by looking at these anyway, despite mastering chain on or off. And okay, so now we have a little loop. And so let's bring in another one. Why not? Actually, you know what? So I'll go off the house loops and go for offset loops. So offset loops are these another sample pack I'm making, which is also another section of the sample pack I just talked about. So these are offset beats. So these are not going to play over the kick. They're actually side chained to be away from kicks. So like a lot of bass stuff in here. And obviously, to each loop, I have a variation of one with kick in it and one without kick, and sometimes dry and wet one. So, you know, you can see sometimes like 4 variations of a loop, but I'll count that as one sample in my pack. So I'm not going to say like 1,000 samples when it's really just like 500 loops or whatever. So, let's see. Let's try this one. So we'll bring that in. Bring that down in volume, make sure it goes to send A, the pre-master, so only sends. So you can see how the kick is like, the kick is right here, and this is away from it, so I don't even need to sidechain this. So that's ideal for like tech house, deep house type of stuff. You want to have grooves that are very offset and things like that. And now I can bring in a higher bass line and kind of just have that be very choppy and quick. So I kind of like that in terms of my style. That's something you see a lot in tech house, but it's kind of I kind of take it into my own characteristics of how I like the high bass lines to be kind of quick and the low stuff to be kind of offset. That's just my preference. Now, since this is kind of like you know, it's kind of higher, I might want to pan this out. So remember that plugin we talked about earlier in the mastering chain, the ghetto mastering chain, I should say. There's this plugin called the BX Solo. So this is free. I'm going to use this to pan out this loop, or to get it much wider. So it's not really panning. It's like a mid side sort of thing. So the mid is actually going to get brought down a bit, and the sides are going to get brought up a bit. And there's other plugins that do similar things, like Waves is center, or there's a free one if you don't have Waves, which is understandable. They're quite expensive. Actually, I was looking right at it. So let's see. There is the mid-side ED by that same company that gives the free Spectrum. So again, this is on pluginboutique.com. You can find this in the mid-side plugins. So I like this one a lot, so I'm going to turn off this one. So you can see, I like how simple this is. You can bring down the mid volume, so bring it down a dB or less. If you bring it down more than 3 dB, when you switch your mix into mono, you're not going to hear that one, or it's not going to be as loud. So you can't turn down the mid too much. But the reason why I do turn down the mid is to give more room for the bass and more room for that stuff. And that's okay, because I'm going to put this more on the sides. So I'm going to give it like 2-3 dB more on the sides. You notice how much wider that is? And it's not really panning, it's just volume to the section. So that's what mid-side kind of is. It's just amplitude in the middle and on the sides. It's not pushing it further left and right. It's nothing like that. But if you did pan this hard left, hard right, and then did some of that on top, you get really wide stuff. Now I'm going to try this one to kind of show you what I would have done with this one. So I would have just brought this up to maybe 150%. Maybe if I felt like going super nuts with this and going super, unorthodox, really crazy wide, I would throw it up to like 200%. But I kind of like how this one ended up sounding. And I like the control of this one. So maybe I'll put this at 3 dB. So you can hear how much wider that is, and now all together. Alright, so we have some basic stuff to get started. So I'm going to make myself a little 4-bar loop, or let's do 8 bars. So 8 bars of this as our intro. And so what we could do to kind of just give us something really cool, we can throw a filter onto the pre-master, because again, the pre-master is controlling everything that's routed to it. So that's basically everything in the song. So we can kind of just fade this in, filter this in, very kind of tech house way. And I do prefer, one of my favorite filters, by the way, that's free as well. I like to introduce a lot of free plugins to you guys, because I know a lot of you guys tell me you're starting out and want to get some free cool stuff. So in terms of free, Extra Records has some good free stuff. And the DJM filter is a really good filter. So, holy crap. The left side is obviously a low pass. The right side is a high pass, low pass on the left. And this is a emulation of the DJM 800 Pioneer mixer, I believe. So this is a really fun filter to use, and I kind of like using it a lot. And you have Rezo and Drive and all that stuff. So I might try these two out. So let's see what I get with this. I actually think that the DJM filter sounds better than the auto filter, just because sometimes you hear little cracks with the auto filter because, it's coming up too fast or things like that. This I find is a little bit cleaner as long as you have the Rezo down. So let's kind of bring that down. And wow, okay, there we go. So a little bit of drive, which is just going to distort the a little bit of the filter. So once you see it like in the middle, it'll turn off, so it's not doing any filtering there. So I'm gonna probably bring this down to around 130. Start it off there, and let's get an automation lane. So let's click on that. So we're on the knob, and let's bring it up to a certain value here. So let's click here, so we can see where this is sitting at. So let's bring it down so it's right around there. Perfect. And if I zoom in, I probably want 1 point there. So perfect. So now what I'll do is I'll take away all these points, make sure there's a point at the very beginning. I'll drag it all the way to the left. And now if I turn this off, now you can be extra clever here and have something outside of this pre-master just for the intro, and that will not be filtered through everything else. So if, you can create an extra pre-master, or no, not pre-master, but like a pre-after master. So it'd be after this pre-master but before this master, and it wouldn't be filtered. But that's already getting way too complicated with your routing. And this thing, it needs one more thing. It needs a vocal bit. So I don't want to seem like I'm plugging in all of my sample packs that I'm working on, but I'm going to use another one of my sample packs that I'm working on. So I'm going to go for this one.
That's the groove, man. Rocket shit. That's the groove, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to take that one in because I want to use that one. I've been using that one in a few things, and I'm not sick of it yet, so I'm going to use it one more time.
That's the groove, man.
And right around there needs the loop.
That's the groove, man. That's the groove, man.
Oh, I just have an idea. So I'm going to create a new audio track. I'm going to throw a shit ton of reverb on this. So I do have an Ableton rack called Tech Vocal Chain 1. I'll use that. Throw it on here, which has the settings I like. And I'm going to throw up the dry wet a bunch. And I'm going to freeze this track. And I'm going to copy down. So just select a region of this, holding down Option. I'll drag it down into a new audio track. And there we go. And now I'm going to unfreeze this. Unfreeze. I'm going to bring that dry wet down. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, but basically it's a vocoder that's just on modulator, things like that, just kind of filtering out some of the, not filtering out, but modulating and vocoding some of the middle stuff. A reverb with, some crazy, with low dry wet, low diffuse, low decay time, just a reverb really to give it some space, and some ping pong delays that I can choose from. So dry wet around 40%, feedback around 64%. And this is turned off onto time, so it's not synced to 69 milliseconds to, kind of make it feel like a spacey ping pong delay. And then just a little bit of utility to compensate for the gain, because when this vocoder killed a lot of the amplitude, so I brought it back in with utility. And this is high up, so don't think it's because of that. So let's turn that down. And the reason why I made this copy anyway, so let me consolidate this, was to do something like, let's see, right around there. That looks about right. So I'm going to reverse this. So I'm just doing the reverse reverb trick. It's super infamous. Everyone knows it. Nothing new there. I did not make that, by the way. Alright, so now if this one plays over that. Let's bring that up. I think I should have done something maybe more like this. I think I know what I should have done. So now I'm just being creative with the reverbs and delays, kind of trying to get something musical out of it. So maybe something like this would work. Cool. And like I said, these two are not routed to the pre-master, so that's why they're not being filtered. But later on, I probably will want to get that there through that pre-master, so I might do that now just to see what it sounds like. But I can also route it to send A and have it go to the master at the same time. But we're going to send it to sends only. So I'm saving it for there. That's the progress I got to in like 40 minutes or so. And this is now a series, so this ended up not being a Sound Design Wednesdays video. So anything I said at the beginning was just my being naive. So, lates, guys, and I'll see you in the part 2.